Peach Bowl episode, and I think we might finally, maybe, have everything going here the way it should be. Let's try one more time here with the dear Goon, if we can. And
hey,
with us,
looky.
On the give me just a second, Goon. I'm trying to get the radio side up and going here as well. Okay. We have this up running, and apologize. Issues here at the start of the show. Dear Goon, you're looking good, though. You look 20 years younger or something.
I know. That's what everybody says every time I shave. So you know the story. I only shave when we lose. So not a happy time shaving. I'll guarantee you that.
I can understand that. Let's talk a little bit. Yeah, your perspective on the Peach Bowl. We talked going in. We were both pretty optimistic, and I think rightfully so going in. Obviously, we didn't know a couple of things in terms of how that was going to play out. One of those being the fact that both Kalen King and Johnny Dixon did not play at all. Olu Fashanu, not a shock. I really thought we were going to see him maybe just for a series or at least for a few plays. I don't think in and of itself, again, we weren't expecting to see a lot of him. I thought they might try to rotate through in the secondary with Daquan Hardy and Johnny Dixon and Kalen King. And then obviously the injury to Abdul Carter affected this team. There's no way around that. But I think, the offensive problems are a big concern. And I don't know that Andy Kotelnicki, as great as he may be, is just going to be able to come in and snap his fingers and that problem is solved. Your thoughts coming out of the Peach Bowl loss to Ole Miss?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm looking at Dan's comment over here on the right here, and he's asking, do you think it was BSU or James Franklin? Did they lie about people opting out? And that's the story I want to know. I really do. I want to get to the bottom of that, because up until the night before the game, they were talking about how even James was saying how, they were going to work some guys through, and they didn't have as many opt-outs as they thought. Chop was the only one, and then Olu, who nobody expected to play, to be honest. I mean, I don't think he should have played, but the other guys, they were surprised. I mean, they're walking out arm in arm to run out on the field, and you hear that Penn State's got 3 defensive backs out and 6 starters and this and that, and you're like, whoa, what's going on here? And I don't know if you've noticed, but the new world that we live in that's run by gambling in sports, I mean, I gotta say, there's a lot of unhappy people that are gamblers because, they're putting money on Penn State and did this or that. And, come game time, like right at the game, they find out, 10 minutes before the game that 6 guys are out. I mean, yeah, you can change those plays, but I don't know. Like I said, I don't know where I'm at with that. And that is that if James didn't know, then Penn State really needs to update. Like, hey, you got to tell us 2 weeks before the game. We have to have, I know it's a hard decision and it's a big decision. It's a life, it's a life altering decision to play or not, because, you're changing your life. You're going away to the NFL. But I think you do owe it to your school, your teammate, your fans. I mean, were those guys practicing 2 days before the game, and then just a day before the game they announce that they're not going to play? And then something's wrong with that in itself. I don't know what happened. I really don't. Other than that, other than the opt-outs and the guys not playing, I mean, you can't, take away over half of your defense when you add in Abdul getting hurt and expect to play tough against a team like Ole Miss. I mean, they are very well coached. And what seemed to upset me the most, Jeffrey, was it seemed that Ole Miss wanted to play and wanted to win more. It meant something more to them And that really hurt me deep to my core. It really did, because that was our thing. I mean, when we played back in the day, I played a lot of SEC teams. I told you about it Thursday. There were times when we went down to bowl games and played Tennessee and Auburn. They didn't want to be there. They were just there to have a good time and be the party guys and stuff like that. And the game was an afterthought. And we went out and stomped them. We went out and worked hard. And it just upset me that the shoe was on the other foot the other day. Like, our guys, it just didn't seem like it meant anything to them on the sideline. And even the sideline reporters were talking about how emotionless and how just docile Penn State's sideline was the whole second half. I mean, what is that all about? I mean, that upsets me a lot.
And yeah, Penn State matched the energy level in the first half. Ole Miss did seem to kind of seize control there in the second half, and the emotion definitely swung in Ole Miss's favor, along with the momentum in the game. I don't know that my guess, and I don't know this, but listening to James Franklin talk ahead of the game, I guess I'll say if he was surprised, then with the opt-outs, then it's a much different situation in that locker room than what he was portraying, because and I don't think that was the case, by the way. Let the record show that I believe they all had the game plan going in, that, hey, we know these are the 4 guys that aren't playing. This is how we're going to scheme around that. All of that. I would be very surprised if we learn that, nope, it was a surprise. Those guys just made the decision the night before to go tell James they weren't going to take the field on game day. And I wonder how much James Franklin may have talked to those guys and said, listen, we'd love to have you out there, but this doesn't make a whole lot of sense for you guys and your future to be out there.
When was that conversation, do you think?
Yeah, before they even made the trip. I mean, this would have been a conversation you'd have probably.
Personally, that's on me. It irks me again then too. If guys are going on the trip and then they're going down, they're living it up, they're living the bowl lifestyle, and it is a reward. We get it. I understand bowl games are rewards and it's a fun time, but if you're going down there knowing you're not going to play and you alert the team 2 days before and you've been there for 6 days. I mean, that's not right. I'm not happy about that. I mean, if that's the case, and I don't know if we're ever going to get the straight answers of what exactly went down. I mean, James up until Friday night was talking, whether, he would talk on LeVar's show that, they had talked to some players and they were going to slowly work them out. And then, by the second half, they were going to have them all out of the game, which is fine if that's your game plan, but don't complain afterwards about the opt-outs. If you knew that was going to happen, if you knew that was the play,
yeah,
I don't understand how one doesn't lead to two. You know what I mean? It just something had to have been known, and if it wasn't known, then you have a culture problem. Then that guys are just taking advantage of the situation, and that's it's just frustrating as a letterman, as an alumnus, and as a fan. You are too, and you're a little more level-headed to me than I when it comes down to this. But
I don't know about.
It hurts me to the core to see that. Like, okay, well, who's lying here? Not lying, but who is not telling the truth? And did they know that the guys weren't going to play? And was the plan to slowly work them out? That's fine. That's okay if that's the case. But then don't talk Friday night that you have all these guys opting in to play and you're so proud of these guys and this and that. So, and then that's the other thing. As a fan, if I spend a ton of money to go down there, it's not cheap. It is not cheap to travel anymore. And games aren't cheap. The tickets aren't cheap. All that stuff down there is not cheap. And it's some people's vacation, and it's just like you spend hard-earned money, and you talked about how we're going to go out there, we're going to do this. We have a lot of guys still playing. We're going to do this and do that. That's great, awesome. Everybody's all fired up, but then did James know that those guys weren't going to play? And it was just like, why are you continuing to sell that all these guys are playing, knowing that they weren't going to play? I mean, whether you're trying to, play the gamesmanship with Ole Miss and don't let them know what's going on. I mean, they're eventually going to know when the guys aren't coming out in the field. And, I just, there's just a lot of unanswered things. And I said, I'm upset because the fans that paid a lot of money out there to go see this team, to go, wish these guys luck, and they were being told that these guys are all together. And in the end, it was just like, hey, we don't want to be here. We never wanted to be here. We had 6 guys not playing, and then the guys who are playing don't really even want to be playing. It was a very frustrating game to watch, and I'd be upset if I spent a lot of money going down there.
Well, I think, or who am I forgetting, Goon? Because I thought we only had 4 opt-outs. I thought it was Chop, and then Kalen and Johnny and Olu. I think it was 4. So you knew you had 1. You knew Olu wasn't going to play much. Like I said, I really play a series. So you really only had the 2 additional opt-outs, and however those situations were handled. And I am with you. If they did know, I think there's better ways to play it coyly. You don't have to come out and if that was the case, I'm with you. That don't come out and lie and say you only have 1 opt-out. Come out and say, there's 1 note, and we're going to see how some situations play out. I mean, you can be vague and not specify that you're proud that all of the other guys are going to play. Now, again, you don't know what all went into the decision and what all was talked about leading up to the game with the coaches and the players, and maybe again it was mutually agreed upon. Hey, rather than play the series or 2 that we were thinking of, want to just help get these guys ready for whatever reason. And who knows? I will say, Goon, the one thing, and I was listening to Colin Cowherd earlier today on Sports Radio 98.7 The Fox here in the State College, and one of the things that he was talking about, and I hadn't really thought about it. I suppose if I had, I probably would have come to the same conclusion. But Cowherd was talking about there are people that are saying, listen, because of the transfer portal and the guys opting out for the draft, we're getting more and more guys saying that these bowl games just aren't worth it, and like games like the Liberty Bowl are going to go away. And Colin's like, okay, see ya. And in all honesty, Goon, I mean, yes, I was pumped for this game and the Rose Bowl last year with Utah. But I mean, it is few and far between the bowl games that you're genuinely excited about. And even those that you would normally be excited about, like Florida State, Georgia, like that is a great game on paper. But with Florida State having virtually its entire defense out, I think they had 2 players that opted in from their regular season starters. Well, you knew that game was very unlikely to be competitive. Yeah. And not the game that you would have signed up to see. With the 12-team playoff now, Goon, I am wondering how many bowl games are going to last long term. And I'll say long term is beyond 5 years here, because I don't think it's going to be many. And I don't know that at the end of the day, I'm thinking this through a little bit, because to me, it's kind of like the NIT basketball tournament. Like if your team's in it and they go to the Final Four and you're a diehard NIT Final Four, you're interested. But how many casual sports fans, even casual basketball fans, are like, oh, I got to see what's happening in the NIT. Listen, I'm a football diehard, and I'll have the games on, even if it's just background noise. I might not be watching intently, but where I can, I have the bowl games on. But how many of them, Goon, were actually worthwhile? Were outside of the 2 playoff games? And by the way, man, were those 2 fun games to watch.
Yeah, the only other game that was worthwhile was LSU Wisconsin yesterday, which was a heck of a game. But other than that, the Oregon Liberty game, just looking at it on paper, Oregon Liberty, I'm not going to watch that game. I'm not going to watch Florida State Georgia, because you knew that Georgia was going to do what they did. You knew what Oregon was going to do. So watching that Tennessee, imagine that. Their offense got shut out. That's unbelievable. 10-win season, and they had 4 losses. They got shut out 4 times. That's insane. They didn't score points in the first half. It was the 4th time this season that they didn't score a point in the first half. That's just insane that they had won 10 games. And talk about being imagine being a defensive coordinator at Iowa and how flustered that must have been. My Lord. So, but the bowl, I mean, yeah, I'm looking at it, and that's been a question of mine from the start is, okay, so like we have 12 teams next year. 4 teams have byes. The first weekend of games is December 20th and 21st. Okay, so that's 8 teams that are playing. Now, are they going to have, if, say like we play Ohio State and Ohio State wins, do we go to another bowl game, or is that it? That your season ends December 21st? Is that what's going to happen, or are they going to slot out the Peach Bowls, all those bowls are good, but it's the lesser tier, the Liberty Bowl, the Charlotte Bowl, the Bahama Bowl, the Weed Whacker Bowl, the Cheez-It Bowl, all of this stuff. You don't know what's going to happen to them. Are they just going to be filled in with the teams that are 13 through? So who's going to them? I mean, there's nobody going to these games as is, so now it's even more worthless. And you have to ask, what are the bowls getting out of this? I mean, this is just a huge tax write-off for them, and it has to be, because how are they making money? Did you see any full stands yesterday other than 3 or 4?
No, it's TV ad revenue, but I don't know how much of the TV ad revenue is going to be there moving forward once you go to the 12-team playoff.
Yeah.
And especially with the other games now having as many opt-outs. Like, I think the interest in the other bowl games is going to continue to dwindle with the 12-team format, even more than it's already dwindled. And yeah, to your point, as far as people go, as far as it being a tourist attraction, that, hey, I want to go see that game because my team's in it. I don't know, how much of that is going to occur in the future, because, the team that I watched all season isn't the team I'm going to be watching in these non-playoff bowl games in probably 100% of the cases. So how attractive is that really? There's some cool destinations, some cool things to do. Maybe you want to get a glimpse at the future of your team, but I don't know how attractive those games really are moving forward. And I think at this point, college football would be better off expanding the playoffs, adjusting the schedule season a little bit, and having the playoffs run basically the month of December. Yep. Now, it's going to be tricky because then you could get that championship game basically on New Year's Day. And what that would also allow you to do is change that transfer portal to New Year's Day and the next week, or whatever it is, until classes start back up. And I realize it's a tight window, but and maybe you say as teams are eliminated, you can go ahead and have the chance to enter the portal. But I think if you have just those 2 teams that are playing for a championship, even after Christmas and everybody else is done, then you have the opportunity there again for and you can adjust the rest of the bowl season, have it be the week leading up to Christmas. And I get it's going to be a very different world. We're used to those of us that have followed college football since we were kids. New Year's Day is football. It can just be the championship game, but I think they have to make some adjustments because of what is happening with the transfer portal, as well as obviously the opt-outs for the NFL draft.
Yeah, I mean, that's a heck of it. I mean, think about it. How long would how many bowl teams do we have? 98, 80? I forget. So if we get on huh?
Too many.
Oh, there's definitely too many. So even if you get in like a 32-team tournament, how many weeks are we talking there? You're talking what, 4 or 5 weeks and this and that. So a couple home games, this and that. It's going to be good for the economy of the local places and this and that. But will they do it? Will these? I don't know. I mean, it has to be better. I mean, every game would mean something. I mean, you're going to have 16 games the first weekend. That would be fantastic. You start on Thursday. You have 2 games on Thursday, 4 games on Friday. You work your way through. And I know they don't want to compete with the NFL, so they never will do that. I get that, but you have a good product. I mean, it's the best product I think out there, but they're slowly killing it. It's just insane. I mean, And then I think that, once we get into the playoff, I think the opt-outs do cease. I do. I truly, truly do, because you're playing for something a whole lot more than, your NFL, your future NFL earnings and stuff. So, I mean, is Olu, if we had a 4-week tournament here, you had to play 4 more games, is Olu going to play all 4 of them? I'd say he absolutely does. And I think 100% of the people do, until they lose. And then, then you move on and you're ready to go, get ready for the NFL. So, I mean, 32 teams would be fantastic. 36 teams with 4 byes, 8 byes. I don't know. I don't know what we could do, but something needs to be done. I mean, that was just the most lackluster bowl, and for the Big Ten and in the NCAA in general. Thank God last night those 2 games happened last night, because I mean I can't tell you how many phone calls and just people I've talked to, just how worthless and meaningless this bowl season was. I mean, there was not many great games, not many great fans, and then people didn't want to be there. It just looked ugly all around, and that needs to change, I think, or the game is going to go away.
Well, yeah, it's going to go away as we knew it.
As we knew it, yes, because it's already gone. And with the NIL and the transfer portal and all this and all that.
Yeah,
I think what you said about having that transfer portal open, that opens on January. No one's starting school January 1st. Nobody. Right. That's the issue. I mean, I'm up at my in-laws' house. My brother-in-law is a big Ohio State fan. That was crap that Kyle McCord could not play for his team on Saturday. Yes, I know he took a pretty bad beating against Michigan and from the fans afterwards, and maybe he didn't want to play for Ohio State anymore. But you know what? You played 12 games with these guys, and then because you're transferring schools, you can't play the last game. I don't like that. It's just very disappointing, and it's not where we want to be as a sport.
Well, the other thing I think that they are going to have to take a look at, and I know Brandon Short posted over the weekend that he thinks the bowl games need to share the revenue with the players in order to get opt-in. I'm telling you, Goon, one of the things that is going to happen is that there is going to need to be financial incentive, and we can argue all we want about whether that's right, wrong. I'm just telling you, moving forward,
yes.
And I think even in the playoffs, because one of the things I think they're going to have to take a long, hard look at, and I don't know what the answer here is, but if you do go to a 4 or 5 week playoff format, and listen, you're already adding 3 weeks, right, for most of the teams with the 12-team format. So you're adding 3 games to the schedule. I think eventually, and I think it's going to take us a while to get there and evolve, but I do think there's going to be, much like there are in the NFL playoffs and in these other sports, it's like you get a bonus. If you are a team,
you win.
And you get to the playoffs, you get X amount more of a bonus if you get through the first round, X amount more, etc., all the way up to the championship. And I don't know.
That's everybody. Quarterbacks don't make more. The star receivers don't make more. Everybody gets the same amount.
Correct. And the other thing that I think Goon may get, to some degree, the letters of intent have always been contracts, right? But I think even more so moving forward, I think you're going to see schools and potentially the advertisers who sign on with the NIL or the donators or whatever we're going to call the individuals that are providing the money in the NIL. Those donors are, you want return on your investment, meaning not just that, you want the players to produce and do well, but you want them out there, right? Like if you are a car dealer and you have player X signed on to sell cars for your dealership, it hurts you if that player then opts out of the bowl game or the postseason because he's protecting himself. And I'm telling you, Goon, I think the lawyers end up winning because I think these contracts are going to be written. The letters of intent are going to be true contracts where it spells out, listen, if you are healthy, you need to play every game that our team plays during your 4 or 5 year stint with us.
Mhm.
And, then eventually you're going to get some sort of litigation where some player is going to say, I'm hurt or I feel sick on the day of the bowl game or even a playoff game. And they're going to say, no, you can play. Our medical staff says you're good. And he's like, nope, I don't feel well. And then you're going to have lawyers. I don't think it's going to be often. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of players that are going to sit there looking to game the system, but it's going to happen at some point. If it's written in that you have to play if you're healthy, right? Somebody's going to try to take advantage.
You're in a meaningful game, though. I mean, you're talking about competing for a national title. It's not talking about playing for 19th place.
But I'm telling you, it's also it's going to depend on the financial incentive because that's fine. Yeah, do I want to win a national title and put my body through 4 more games to try to win that title? Yes, but if I have a $10 million payday for signing, more than that awaiting me, I'm just telling you, I don't think it's as automatic as we think it is right now, that everybody is just definitely going to be all in on the playoffs.
It's going to go back to what I've been complaining about since from the start. I mean, I love Brandon. Brandon's a teammate. Brandon's a friend of mine. But why is it on the bowls to pay the players? Again, the NCAA is not paying anything. The universities aren't paying anything. The conferences aren't paying anything. Why is it on? Now it's on the fan. Now it's on the bowl. Oh, to watch these guys play. You got to start putting money up if that's what you want.
Well, no, I think that the point would be, however you want to look at it. I think the it's going to be the bowl / the conference and team.
Yes.
It is good.
That's where it's got to come from, because
the
it's
revenue that you're getting from those bowl games, from those TV deals, is going to have to be spread, however it is, among the student athletes. I still think, Goon, where we're going to get into real problems down the road in terms of the construct as we know it, is with the non-revenue or Olympic sports, the sports that are not football or basketball, and how those student athlete deals are in the future handled.
Yeah, and then again, like we've said from the start, is Title IX is going to come into play eventually here. It's well, okay, so take 2 games out of your regular season, drop back 2 more games. I don't know. I mean, yeah, there's so many ways to do it, but I've been up here in my in-laws' house for a couple of days, so I'm doing a lot of reading and stuff like that. Reading some articles on Ohio State. I don't know. There was a player on there complaining, and I think that the whole world that doesn't know the inner workings of the NIL and in what at different schools and this and that, but it's really happening is that they're paying a lot of the big players big money and this and that, but then the little guys aren't getting much. Specifically, offensive linemen. And one guy from Ohio State was complaining, says that Ohio State doesn't pay their offensive linemen and this and that. And that's why they're losing people hand over fist. And it's like, man, this is where we're going to come to right now. It's crazy, but it's not something we didn't expect, though, Jeffrey. I mean, we knew this was going to happen. I mean, it's we have said from the start, it can't last forever the way it was going. You can't ask somebody for $10 million for a player or for a great recruiting class, and then that recruiting class leaves and go back to that same guy. It's not going to happen. They're going to start saying no, and it's already starting. It's the whole thing needs fixed. I mean, you and I, you know it. We've been talking about this for at least 3 years, the ramifications of the NIL and all of this and all of that. And, now we're starting to see the bad side of it. And, I said on the TV show, my player show, like the first couple of weeks, and I talked to you about it on the air, and that was, I think the guys now appreciate it. The older guys appreciate the NIL because they didn't have it their first 2 or 3 years. And they get money, and they're like, oh, this is great. This is one outstanding. Then you get younger guys who are coming here, or they've already been here, who've been catching cash for the last 2 years, who aren't going to appreciate it. It's going to be expected. It's not going to be appreciated. And I think that's going to turn people off to the point where they're not going to donate and they're not going to give money up. It needs fixing big time. And at the end of the who's running the ship? The NCAA is doing nothing. And they say that the ESPN and the Foxes and all these people are running the college football. Then they got to step up and do something, because that was unbelievable what happened this last 2 weeks. Remember 10 years ago, it's the most wonderful time of year was bowl week and all that, and every night you could watch a bowl game. And now you're just sitting there. You're watching. I mean, what I saw Ohio State put out of the field the other night was embarrassing. And then, watching our guys, and, our guys competed, but they weren't up to the level of the Ole Miss players. And then it was like, okay, well, we're going to lose. Okay, we're out of here. It's done, And I was like, that's not where I want to be as a football fan. It's not where I want to be as a Penn State fan. It's not where I want to be as a Big Ten fan. Watching, I want to watch football. I want to watch Marvin Harrison Jr. But I get a Marvin Jr. And I get Olu. I get those guys. These guys are going to be guaranteed first top 10 picks. I think that's where I'm drawing the line is. You're talking about a 4th and 5th round guy talking about, hey, I'm getting ready for the NFL draft, and he's on the sidelines. Like, what are you doing on the sideline? Are you down there partying? Or what? I mean, I know what happens at bowl games. I've been on 7 of them. I get it. I understand what goes on at bowl week. You have a hell of a time. You have a great time. Everybody wants you to have a good time, so you talk about it. And, these kids not really appreciating it. And it's just, I mean, you're there to, train for the NFL. I mean, and then, why are you on the sideline? Why are you not out, training for the NFL? You could be playing right now as a 5th or 6th round pick, improving your grade. I don't know. It's just a different mindset these guys have.
Yeah, I do think moving forward, one of the things that's going to be also interesting to watch, Goon, because I do think eventually we're going to kind of go back to more regional play, where I think you're going to end up with like a 10-game regular season schedule. And what's going to be tricky there is, again, Penn State, and Penn State's not alone. A lot of those Power 5 schools rely on the 7 home games. Like they need those 7 home games financially. And the financial pressure is going to mount here with, again, whatever this looks like in terms of providing financial opportunities for the players. But eventually, I think we're going to end up with, and I don't know what it'll be called, Big Ten East and West, or they just go to entirely different direction with the names. But I think you end up with more playing a 10-game schedule or something like that just in your region. And I don't know how, again, you're going to work out getting enough home games for the teams. Maybe it's a situation where if you don't make the playoffs, you schedule a couple of more games at the end of the year as, exhibitions in essence. Maybe one or 2 additional games at home.
Think about that, Jeffrey. I mean, okay, so you that's a hell of a point right there. You just said it. So you play 10 games. I mean, if we only have Division I, AA, 2 or 3 model to look at and see how that worked, I mean, it would be great. I wish we had that to look at. Wow.
Yeah.
No, but you say like, okay, so say Penn State doesn't make the 32 round or the 50 round, whatever we're doing, this and that. So then the Big Ten has a tie-in with the MAC schools, and you have a home game against and you pay a MAC school $300,000 to come in and play one last season's game. I know Penn State fans will come to it. The MAC schools will take $300,000 cash to play. It'll fund their program for the year, and we get our, Penn State does well, the State College does well. It's all fine and dandy. I mean, there's ways around all that. I mean, yeah. And I'm literally talking like I 15 minutes ago was complaining about the product on the field and people spending money going to Atlanta. So would people come to State College and spend $700 a night for a hotel room on a whim? You're not going to find out till a week before. Crazy.
Yeah, on what would be on the heels of a disappointing season. I mean, it's a legit question, and I don't know definitively the answer to it. Couple of other things, Goon, just going back to the game. Actually, let's stay on this for a moment, and then we'll go back to the game and break down a few things that we saw in the game. On moving forward, to answer your question, Goon, I think it's the conferences that are going to dictate what this looks like in the future and how the money gets divvied up. And that is going to be one of the, I think, difficult aspects of college football and college athletics moving forward is, how do you divvy up that money? If you get, because the Big Ten, well, I think it gets a lot of things wrong. I like the way they go about divvying up the money, which is it's just even. All of the schools that are in the conference, they take the pot and you divide it up. Now it'll be 18 ways, and you get your cut. It doesn't matter if you finish dead last or first. That's the cut that you get because you're in the conference. So, you're going to divvy that up that much further with the players, but I think it's the conferences that are going to do it. What is going to be interesting, Goon, is like if the Big Ten and the SEC have varying, and I don't think it'll be widely varying, but if the SEC is giving you, I'm making up the numbers, but each player gets 2% of the cut or whatever it would be, 0.5, whatever it is, and the other conference goes 0.6, or again, I don't know how you ultimately balance that stuff out. And part of it is, I was reading some stuff over the weekend as well, and it's like, man, it's just so unfair because schools like Texas A&M and Alabama and Ohio State have these huge coffers that they can offer. And it's like, well, I hear you, and I don't disagree that it's unfair, but what do you want them? It's always been unfair. It's unfair that Penn State has the stadium it does, and in Akron or even in Indiana has the stadium it does. It's unfair that Penn State has the alumni base it does. And some of these schools, Northwestern has a much smaller alumni base to choose from. And so there's always been inherent unfairness just based on the interest level, where you're at, coaching. I mean, all of that stuff has always factored in. And there's a reason Alabama over the years has been good. Notre Dame over the years has been good. USC. And yes, there's going to be teams that come and go a little bit. But there's largely the same schools decade after decade after decade. And it's because, they have advantages. And so I don't see that as anything new. And it may change a bit, those advantages and what they mean for the various schools. But ultimately, another thing that Colin Cowherd got me to thinking about today was they were talking about how great those two semifinal games were and how many weekends, and we've talked about this, Goon, this season. It's like there were a lot of weekends where we went into it. It's like, man, I love college football, but there's no game that really grabs my attention this weekend. Or maybe there's a game or two that I want to watch. But other than that, the one thing, if you go to a 10-game schedule, and again, I'm making up the number, but that would seem to make some sense to me out of the gate. And you play a largely regional schedule. Let's say you play 8 games against teams that are in your region. So Penn State would play maybe, Ohio State, Maryland, Rutgers, and moving forward, maybe like a Pitt and West Virginia and Syracuse, whatever it would be. But you play kind of that regional schedule, and every game matters in that scenario, and you have to win your group or finish in the top 2 of your group or whatever it is to make the playoffs. How do the conferences then, again, divvy that up? But is one component. But the other part is, I think for the fans, you win because I think you have more significant games. Now, you're still going to have a couple of games here or there where, just like the NFL tries to have the balanced schedule, you still have some games that you pretty much know the result going in. There's obviously some big upsets that occur along the way, but the Carolina Panthers play the San Francisco 49ers. You have a pretty good idea how that game's going to go this year.
Or the Cardinals play the Eagles.
Yeah, or the Cardinals play the Steelers. Either of those games, the Pennsylvania teams they're clearly superior. No chance of the Cardinals winning those games. Um, but no, I think you have more games though, Goon, that fans are like, hey, yeah, I want to see this. I want to see how this game turns out. And I think if ultimately, as we talked about, we see a contraction in terms of the quote unquote big boy football players, and we end up with, again, making up the number, but 60 schools that are like, yep, we're all in on this new era, paying the players whatever it looks like, age of football. Well, if you only have 60 teams, right, then you're getting, take the best high school players now that are divvied up among whatever it is, 120. Now you're cutting that in half. Well, you're getting elite play even in the 60th team, right? It's just like the NHL or the NBA or the NFL. So, yeah, those worst teams like Carolina Panthers are bad, but man, there's a lot of good players on that team. Well, it's going to be the same thing if that is what happens. And I think eventually that is what happens in college football. And I think, again, you get, for the fan, you get more competitive games that mean something throughout the course of the season. We talked all year, Penn State, yeah, it couldn't stub its toe anywhere along the way, but it had two games. I mean, this season felt like it was two games. Had to take care of business. I understand that. I'm not saying you can take anything for granted. They had to win the other 10. They did, but it was a two-game season. Well, next year, Goon, like USC, I want to see that. I want to see Washington. UCLA, I don't think is quite there yet, but I'm interested to see that game. There's going to be more games that are compelling for the fans, and I think down the road, again, you're going to have, if you have a 10-game schedule, I think you'll have at least 5 of those games that it's like, ooh, man, I really got to see that one and see how it goes. Well, that's much preferable to the schedules that we have now, where, again, you basically know the outcome of probably a good 70% of the games before they're played. And again, there may be some major upsets that occur see that, but those are just, to me, those are the exceptions that kind of prove the point. Real quickly, do want to mention you're finally listening to us. I apologize. My fault. This was operator error on the issues at the start of the program today, but you are now listening to the Goon and Ironhead show, the Line Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show on both Facebook Live and on WFXS, Pleasant Gap State College. That is 98.7 Sports Radio, the Fox here in the Center County area. But good, I do think it's just going to be heartbreaking, I think, for some of us. And listen, I'm just one of those guys that doesn't like change. But I get that it's inevitable. And in this case, I think ultimately it may end up getting college football to a better place. I'm not sure it's going to get college athletics to a better place. And that's my still overarching concern about how all of this ultimately plays out. But another component here is, I do think schools are going to have to decide, hey, do we want to be in this newest arms race and be part of this quote unquote big time college football picture, or do we want to step back and go to more of the old school kind of the Ivy League model, where it's like, hey, we're going to play sports, but it is truly an extracurricular activity. There are limits on the amount of time that schools can demand student athletes participate in practices and stuff. And that's all well and good. And by the way, this is not, I'm okay with this, but there are some people that are going to say that they're not okay with it. And I can understand it as far as it goes. But Goon, do you know a single student athlete who isn't putting in, and I don't mean just football players, do you know a single student athlete who isn't putting in time above and beyond the required practice time and the NCAA, mandated limit of time you can put in directly with your sport? right? Like all of these guys are doing additional, and girls are doing additional work above and beyond the mandated. Again, there's limits, and teams and players may honestly say, hey, we are not, I don't want you to do extra work. They're going to go do it because they want to get that edge.
Absolutely.
And so
that's called being an athlete. If you want to get better, that's not going to happen. You got to go work for it. You got to go take it.
Yeah. And so on the other side, I do want to go back to the game and break down some things for Penn State. The defensive side, again, to me, Goon, pretty explicable because you had two cornerbacks that were out, and you had a really good quarterback and really good receivers for Mississippi. That side of the ball and what happened to me is acceptable, might be too strong of a word, but I'm okay with it, and it makes sense to me. The offensive side is where I think, Goon, there are huge question marks going into next season, and we'll pick up on that discussion on the other side of this timeout. Again, you are listening to the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show. Our thanks to Quaker Steak and Lube, our normal home on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Our thanks to Lion Country Kia, terrific place to get a new or used vehicle if you're looking to start the new year with such a purchase. And Sioka Motors is also a wonderful place to check out your next vehicle. We're back in mere minutes.
Coast into fall with a new Kia from Lion Country Kia. Right now, get a 24 Kia Seltos for 5.25% APR for up to 48 months. A new Sportage plug-in hybrid at 0.9% APR. Check out our 23 Sorento hybrid for as low as 4.5% APR. And don't forget, all 2023 and 2024 Kias come with a 10-year, 100,000-mile limited warranty. Stop in and meet with one of our sales experts today and coast into fall at Lion Country Kia. We want to see you in a Kia.
Since retiring, I have spent my time searching the countryside for the hottest wings in America. I always seem to end up disappointed. You call these hot? Back off, Luigi.
Mamma mia.
Look, hands it, busboy. Your wings suck! I knew I should have stuck with Quaker Steak's triple atomic wings. You think I'm tough enough?
The Center Hall Farm Store has been serving Center County and beyond for well over a half century. A small family business, the Center Hall Farm Store specializes in animal nutrition and manufactures its feed fresh using local ingredients. Get the best in horse, cow, pig, chicken, and bird feeds. If you're not already a customer, stop in and see why so many of your neighbors are. The Center Hall Farm Store at 110 West Allison Street in Center Hall, or call us at 814-364-1393.
Sioka Toyota of Williamsport invites you to stop in today or check us out online. We have the smart path to your next Toyota, like the all-new Crown, BZ4X, the all-new Grand Highlander, Corolla Cross Hybrids, Sequoias, and more. Over 100 new Toyotas here and on the way. Don't make a $1,000 mistake. Choose Sioka Toyota of Williamsport and see the Sioka dealership's difference. Buy or reserve yours today and see for yourself why Sioka Toyota is the only stop you need for your next new car. Sioka Toyota, it just feels right.
Ready to be part of something bigger? Come pave the road to success at Glen O'Habaker and discover a career where your hard work and determination can build a bigger, better future. Our team believes we can build a stronger future together. Join us at Glen O'Habaker, where we value teamwork on the field and on the job. Go to GOHcareers.com to apply. GOHcareers.com. And best of luck to all the Center County sports teams all season long from everyone at Glen O'Habaker.
The Goon and Ironhead.
We welcome you back in here on this Tuesday afternoon, the first Goon and Ironhead show of 2024. Goon offensively, obviously the receivers struggled throughout the season, struggled mightily again in this game. But Drew Aller also struggled, Goon. And, the final statistics, although not all that impressive, actually look better than what I think he actually performed because of the drives late in the game there. I don't listen. I'm not here to be overly harsh on any college student athlete, and I think that the kid is giving his all and all of that. But this is 3 games now on big stages this season, Goon. Right? Well, Ohio State, Michigan, and Ole Miss. Where, and I'm not pinning this all on Aller. Again, I think there's blame to go around, but Drew Aller has struggled mightily in some of these games. And the 2 things that are really concerning to me, Goon, in those games, his fundamentals get away from him. Like, it's one thing, you're going to have an off day, right? Everybody, Tom Brady had some off days. But if your fundamentals are solid, that they're still there. Like, he doesn't step into all of his throws. There are times where he just kind of sits back and it almost goes off of his back heel when he doesn't need to. I mean, I'm not saying there's never a circumstance where that's not understandable, but the mechanics, when he doesn't do well early, his basic mechanics seem to go away. And the other thing is, Goon, I do think it is now a legitimate, worthwhile discussion, because all along, I think you and I, at least, and I think most people have, well, Drew Aller is clearly your starter, and yeah, we'd like to see Perbola in there in spots. I don't think that's clear cut to me right now, Goon, that Drew Aller should be your starter next year. I'm not saying throw him out with the bathwater. I'm saying you need an honest evaluation in the spring and even in the next preseason about which of these quarterbacks will be most effective at moving this offense. And with the problems you had at receiver, Goon, and, you know, again, I'm late to the call here. I'll admit that. But I do think Bo Perbola would have been a more effective quarterback. Now, does Penn State end up 10-3 either way? Could they have been worse with Perbola in there record-wise? I suppose. But when you are having the problems that Penn State was with its receiving game, right, having a quarterback who has that running threat is a big deal. The other thing to me, Goon, and again, I want to hold off on going crazy here because you do have Andy Kotelnicki coming in, but I'm watching Alabama, for example, and Alabama struggled, I mean, out of the gate against Michigan. It was like, holy cow, Alabama's going to get overwhelmed. 5 sacks in the first half. And then there comes the third quarter. They made adjustments. They did things a little differently, found some seams. Yep. Was there ever a game? And again, I get that it was kind of a piecework offensive coordinatorship down the stretch, and we all agree that there were some issues there with Yurcich. But was there ever a game this year where you're like, man, did Penn State make some good adjustments during that game?
No.
Like, I don't think there was one all year. And either by the quarterback or by the offense as a whole. And again, comparing it to a few of the elite ones that are out there, I understand that. But man, the same thing with Washington. You see them make adjustments as the game goes on. Defenses are doing things. And I mean, Michael Penix is elite as a quarterback. I don't know. I mean, he gets a lot of credit, Goon. I don't know that he gets enough credit for how special he is. If you watch that game, and I fell asleep, I didn't make it to the end. But man, that guy is a difference maker. Yeah. No question about it. I want to see if Andy Kotelnicki, I want to see one, if they can truly open up this quarterback competition. And again, I'm not saying Drew Aller can't be the guy everybody thought he could be coming out, but I'm saying we did not see it consistently enough this season. You know, I'm kind of with him the way I am with Kenny Pickett with the Steelers. It's like, I'm not ready to give up on him. I still think I've seen enough to make me think, yeah, he could be the guy, but I haven't seen enough to make me confidently say to you, yep, boy, that's our guy. He's going to lead us into the future. Yeah, what are your thoughts? Quarterback.
You're talking about Drew early in the game. And that is, he got hit a couple times, and I don't know if he does not have good pocket awareness.
He does.
Where I think that he starts getting hit, and we have an old saying back in the day that, you know, you start seeing ghosts and demons when you start getting hit a little bit. And then you lose your mechanics, and that seems to be what happens to him a little bit. Is he just loses his mechanics, and it just goes to naught. Speaking of adjustments, you say that Michigan came out on fire, destroyed Alabama. Alabama comes back, takes it over, but then Michigan makes more adjustments, and they take the fourth quarter over. And again, we don't see that with our team right now. We haven't seen that with our team. What you see from the start is almost like, okay, this is what we have. This is what we're going to have the rest of the game. There's going to be no more adjustments. I should say offensively, because defensively we have made adjustments over this past season, but offensively it never seems to be many adjustments going on, and you have a new quarter. I mean, you have a left tackle in there that's brand new, a right tackle who left the game early. You have two new, and then you have Aller back there. Again, his mechanics go to crap when he starts getting hit around. I mean, every quarterback's mechanics goes to crap when they start getting hit. Let's just put that out there. We're not going to say Drew Aller himself is like that. No. But he needs to have better pocket awareness of what's going on out there and step around. I mean, you look at Penix last night, and granted he has a very good offensive line, and he did not get hit that much.
No question.
He didn't get sacked at all against a really, really, really good Texas defensive line. So I know we'll get into that going forward with the Michigan and Washington title game. But, you're watching Penix last night. I mean, I'm just sitting there with my father-in-law saying, man, this dude throws he throws a great deep ball, and I'm still trying to figure out what Drew does exceptionally well. Does he throw a short ball well? Does he throw he couldn't even hit the check down routes the other day at points, and it just drove me absolutely bonkers. And then Prabula comes into the game, drives the team down the field, and throws a touchdown pass. And he doesn't seem to get more plays out of that. I'm sorry, but it seemed to have worked. Let's get him some more plays out there. Jeff, I got to ask you. I mean, last year people were clamoring for Aller to replace Clifford for a couple series a game. Did James know something that we didn't, that he wasn't ready for this at that time? And he's still young. Like you said, you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, no doubt. And absolutely, we don't want that to happen. But I mean, does he do better with the new OC, or does the OC come in there and say, you know what, I'm going to play the guy I want to play. So it's an open spring and preseason.
And listen, Kotelnicki used two quarterbacks at Kansas, so it is not necessarily that they have to figure out one guy to go with, right? I do think when you have two guys that are as different as Aller and Prabula are, that can be an advantage. That hey, let's just go with the guy that's hot, and maybe Prabula plays higher game. Maybe Aller gets hot and he goes, but so it's not even that I think that but I do think it is a situation now where, to me, Goon, it is not clear cut. And again, I'm just speaking for me, that Drew Aller should be your number one, and clearly full steam ahead. We'll get this figured out with him. Again, I'm not saying give up on him. I'm not saying get him out of here. I'm saying it needs to be a real competition, and I think they need to sit down and really evaluate what their best option is to get this offense moving. And listen, if they don't get any big name, or not even big name, but any player that they think is going to be a productive number one in that receiving core, and I don't have great faith that they have it in-house. Maybe they do. I mean, we've seen guys make leaps from one season to the other, so I'm not saying it's impossible that like an Amari Evans takes a giant leap and becomes that guy next year. But you don't have a lot of confidence right now if you're a Penn State fan. I don't have any confidence that, this receiving core is going to be rock solid next year, or has a number one guy. And if you don't have that, if you don't get that addressed in the transfer portal, or, one of the incoming freshmen doesn't, light your world on fire, then Prabula, to me, right, makes more sense, Goon, as being the guy that at least gets more snaps at quarterback. Because, again, if you don't have a receiving core that you feel you can rely on, then you need to become a running offense. And I think Prabula, with those running backs, with Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton and the kid coming in next year, and I think Penn State can do a lot of damage with the running game, and I think more so with a running quarterback like Pervola in there than a Drew Aller, which we saw what he did with the receiving core that they have. And if they don't, again, significantly improve the receiving core, what would lead you to believe that that passing game with Aller in charge is going to be significantly better next year?
Yeah. I mean, I believe we have wide receivers coming in. We don't know as of yet. I mean, was it Fleming, Julian Fleming? Is that his name from Ohio State?
Yeah.
Is he? I mean, there was that report last week. He showed a picture of Blaze Alexander truck. I mean, I thought that was pretty funny. But is he coming in? But he's a fifth-year senior who didn't play at Ohio State. That he played a little bit, but not as he's not been super successful. It just comes down to it. I mean, we have an unbelievable run game with our running backs. We have great tight end games. We have a workable offensive line. I mean, teams were sitting there saying, okay, you're not going to throw the ball on us because you can't throw the ball on us because you're not going to run on us. We're going to put 8 in the box, and, you're not going to run on us. You're not going to use that run game, and we never took advantage of it. We never had that receiver. I think Ohio State really just jolted our receivers to the point where, you just got to play press man on these guys because they don't know how to get off and they don't know how to separate and make catches. And that's pretty tough for a quarterback to get around if you get wide receivers that aren't getting open. I mean, what is it? Midway through the third quarter, and there was a first wide receiver catch on Saturday. Like that's a. I mean, wow! Come on, you got to do better than that. All around, top to bottom, you got to do all around. The receivers coach has got to go to James and say, hey, let's get my guys involved here. Throw me a screen, do something. It's just it's a very, very frustrating game watching that Saturday. And, the season ended up being very frustrating to you and I because we both had very, very high hopes for it. And, I got to let it be known that, nobody's more upset than this coaching staff. I mean, I don't think they're sitting at home counting their money, laughing and saying, oh, wow, well, we got our crap kicked out of us. We didn't play well. Wow, okay, on to the next one. I don't think that's like that at all. I think these guys are competitors, and they're going to want to try and go out and get better and not let this happen again.
To your point, going into the bowl game, though, Goon, about why this game was so important, and you want to get into the offseason on that good note. I do think there's such a different feeling around those two programs right now. Penn State, I think there are question marks up and down. I think there are question marks now about the secondary and the cornerbacks in particular. And listen, there's not a lot of teams that are going to be able to throw receivers and a quarterback at you the way Ole Miss did, right? Like I don't think that the secondary is going to be a disaster next year for Penn State, but they need marked improvement from what they saw against Ole Miss. If again, I'm always putting this in the context of can Penn State take that next step and become elite, become a semifinalist in the playoffs next year, not just a top 12 team that gets in the playoffs. And right now, I think there's concerns about the secondary. There's certainly concerns about the offense in general and in particular with the passing game, both quarterback and receivers. And I think, now coming off of the loss, Goon, like going into it, I'm like, well, yeah, Penn State only has the one transfer portal guy, but I think that's good. You want stability in the program, and I think this is a good thing. I still don't think I'm not enamored with the idea of, hey, let's bring in 12 guys off the portal that'll make significant contributions next year. But having just one as a kicker, like that is a concern at the moment, Goon. Whereas Mississippi has a bevy of transfer portals that have that program excited. Like I think fans would think they can go win the SEC championship next year. And based on what we saw in that Peach Bowl game, I'm not sure they're wrong. I think that team next year is ready to compete with the Georgias and the Alabamas of the world.
It'll be interesting to see how they do because you're going to see the first transfer portal team, really, in my opinion, with Lane going out there and being very aggressive and getting his guys that he wants in the transfer portal going in the next season. So I thought about that the other day, and I was like, these guys are playing well, and these guys are playing for their positions because he's out recruiting the heck out of this transfer portal, bringing all these kids in and all these guys in. I want to see how that happens, how that works.
Yeah.
I think that Lane's going to try and treat the Ole Miss like an NFL team. I mean, he comes from NFL roots. He has that NFL pedigree. I mean, it doesn't surprise me that he would go down that route, and he's got a heck of a team right now, and he's just going to add to it. So I'm very interested to see, and I'm sure as a lot of people around the country are, to see what a team with mostly transfer portals will do.
Well, and listen, you have Texas and Oklahoma obviously coming in next year, which makes the SEC that much more difficult and intriguing. But listen, I think Ole Miss is riding a wave of momentum into next year and does have those good vibes we were talking about. Now, yeah, we'll see how it all plays out. There's no guarantees with anything. But I do think now, Goon, Penn State has a ton of questions, and I don't think there are many Penn State fans who are thinking, yep, next year is the year Penn State will top the Big Ten. Though, I think now it's, I hope they can get into the playoffs with the 12 teams. Maybe if they can get some things fixed, right? Like, it's a whole different vibe, based largely, I think, on the outcome of that game.
We win that game, we're having a whole different conversation right now, saying, wow, I can't wait for this season to kick off right now. USC is okay. Washington's in the national title game, but they're losing a lot of guys. Oregon, UCLA, the new guys coming in. We're not playing all our regular schedule. I mean, yeah, this is not a comfortable conversation we're having right now, and it's not fun, man. Not fun at all.
Yeah, and listen, I don't think Penn State coming off of the loss, it doesn't feel like the roof is caving in, but it does feel like Penn State is more likely to tread water than it is to take the next step toward being an elite program next year.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And
and there's just a lot of unanswered questions, right? Like, can Drew Aller take that next step and be a consistent, great quarterback? Can they figure out the receiving core? The offensive line is a question again next year, Goon. I mean, you're replacing 3 guys there. And listen, I think they're going to be okay there. But again, based on what we saw, especially from some of those guys that we counted on next year against Ole Miss. Again, it doesn't look like a disaster to me, but I think there's questions. So I think this team does have a lot more questions than things that you're like definitively, man, that look out. Like the running backs, yes, I think I feel really good about the running backs going into next year. I feel really good about the tight ends. I feel really good about the safeties. I feel pretty darn good about the linebackers, and I feel pretty darn good about the defensive line. Not great on either of those last two. Like, I wouldn't sit here and guarantee you that those units are going to be fantastic, but I feel pretty good. But cornerback, wide receivers, quarterback, offensive line, I think question marks going into next year. And, how does this all look with a new offensive and defensive coordinator? Again, to me, Goon, it going into next year feels like 9-3, 10-2 is about right. And that's just not where you want to see this program get to, with the expectations going back to the start of this season that, hey, all right, they're ready to take that next step. I've been talking about it, and I'm, I guess, a James Franklin apologist or a defender to whatever degree you want to assign me that designation. But I will say, like, at some point you do have to start winning these big games. And, Utah, they won a big game, one in the last 6 opportunities here. That's not great if you're looking to take that next step.
Well, Jeff, I have another something, not to cut you off, but it's I think that we didn't have a great transfer portal this year. I mean, that's not our thing. If James is not going to want to go down that route, and that's fine, I'm cool with it. Yeah. But we need to do a much better job of developing our talent. From walk-in to walk-out era, You know, I mean, you have a lot of guys who come here as star players and they leave here as star players. That's fine. But what about the players who are fringe great players that we make into great players? We're definitely going to need to improve on that. It just seems like we haven't had much improvement, and especially on the offense.
Yeah, I
mean,
mean,
if you weren't a star, like why are you're not like Allen and our running backs are stars. We get that. They're not getting it any better. They're not going to get any worse. But are you making a backup offensive lineman into a 2-year starter here? Is that going on? Is that working? Are we having a backup running or a backup wide receiver as a freshman getting a 2-year? I always say a successful scholarship is a 2-year starter. Are we getting that?
Yeah, I mean, I think they've done a decent job actually in that regard, Goon. Overall, I think that the difficulty, and listen, again, it's not like Penn State's the only program that's having this difficulty. There's like five or six that are doing it consistently well. I mean, Washington is having a great season. I don't think Washington is going to be a perennially in the Final Four the way an Alabama or a Georgia have been, or an Ohio State. Now, maybe they prove me wrong. I mean, I think this year they kind of were pointing toward for a while. Penix has been unbelievable. Like, I think that's a good team, a good program, and I think they'll be back in the mix here at some point in the relatively near future. But I don't think like the teams that are there year in and year out are few and far between. I mean, it's basically 5 schools, right? If that right now. I mean, Alabama seems to always be there. Ohio State, Michigan now, although we'll see if Harbaugh does bolt for the pros. I think it's going to be really interesting to see if that does happen, what Michigan does with its next coach, whoever it brings in. And then, what does that look like in terms of sustained success? Because it took Harbaugh a while, right? They were ready to run him out, and then he got turned around, beat Ohio State, and then has had back-to-back really good seasons, and obviously a great game last night in the semifinals. And now they're on the doorstep of a national title. With all kinds of accusations and baggage that comes with it, by the way. And
then Texas is another one who's on that fringe of, being that top 4 annually, and then financially they can afford to do that, so they can go out there and maintain what they have right now. So, yeah, and they're going to go to that's a huge move for them going to the SEC.
But I think so. But I think Penn State is more likely, Goon, right? To like, I think what they. At least in my mind, I think they're looking for more of the Washington model. They'd love to be a Georgia or Alabama. I don't think financially that the fans here really want to make that kind of commitment. And by the way, I'm just going to speak for myself. I personally, I'm okay with that. To play with the big boys year in and year out. And I'm talking again, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State. And then, maybe you throw in Texas and Michigan right now. Maybe USC gets back there in the relatively near future. But I think it's more likely for Penn State that you kind of go back to the Paterno model where you build to try to have that 1 or 2 year run. And then you have, again, 3 years where you're trying to be good. Like, you're not looking to drop off the face of the earth. You want to be in the conversation, competing for playoff spots. But I think realistically, if you're trying to get that year where, all right, everything needs to come together. And it felt, Goon, like this year had the potential to be that year. And one of the ironies to me with this season, because one of the things James Franklin has been really good at is getting that number 1 receiver, whether it's you go back, and Penn State in general, but Allen Robinson, Jahan Dotson, Penn State has consistently had a guy that has been able to emerge as the number 1 guy, and thought maybe Keandre Lambert-Smith would be that guy this year, and then thought for a short while in the offseason maybe Dante Cephas would be that guy. It didn't pan out. Could Trey Wallace be that guy next year? maybe. Again, he feels to me more like that kind of good, reliable too. Fleming had the out of play. Would I love to see him come here? Yes. Do I think he boosts that room? Yes. Do I think that? And now you have your number one guy who's clearly going to be a difference maker. I'm not sure I'm sold on that. I'd love to see it, but I'm just not at all confident that that's going to be the season. But the fact that you need that season where you have the defense that Penn State had this last year. Yep. You have a quarterback who, again, we thought going into this year that was the case. You could be the team and need a receiving core that is considered number one guy, a la Marvin Harrison, that can take over a game if you need him to. And unfortunately, Penn State didn't have that this year. Now, the question is going to be, can the defense, in terms of whether next year could be that year. And right now, I honestly don't think it can be. I think Penn State's going to be very good again next year, but I don't think Penn State's going to be on the stage competing in the Final Four next year, because I just don't think in some of the key spots they're where they need to be for that to happen. So then you're looking, well, can they get there in 2025? And we've had some conversations throughout the year. I've said and I think you and I agree that Franklin was under no pressure, nor should he be, from the administration, despite what some fans thought in terms of being out of here at the end of this year if they didn't win enough. I don't know when that it becomes an issue. It's kind of like where I'm at with Aller. Like all season, I'm like, well, no, Aller is clearly your starting quarterback. Now we sit back at the end of the season, I'm like, I'm not as confident about that. Listen, I want James Franklin back next year for sure. But if they don't win the quote unquote big games next year, and I'm not even sure what the big games are, I think we got to see how next season plays out a little bit. I mean, Ohio State clearly will be one of them. I know right now people are going to circle Washington and USC. I want to see how the season plays out, how good those teams actually are next year. But I don't necessarily think James Franklin needs to be under pressure next year, or that it needs to be a make or break year. Some point here in the next couple of years, right? You've got to start winning these games, or you do have to have the conversation. Are we okay? And I'm not sure that you're not okay being consistently a 10-win program who isn't going to get into, at least very often, if at all, into that top four in a particular season. And I could argue that point either way as to whether or not you should be content with that. And I'm not saying James Franklin is content, or that Penn State administratively necessarily would be content. But, if you're not content, you make a move. And does Penn State want to make a move if you go through a couple of more years where you get to 10, but you don't have signature victory at the end of the year?
Yeah, I mean, that was our biggest thing going into the season. You and I think we spoke for a lot of people. We were really interested in seeing Ohio State, Michigan. And then, you failed on both of those accounts in those games, and weren't really competitive in them. It wasn't like bad, this happened or that happened. No, they outplayed us, they outcoached us, they outmanned us, all that stuff. So then you go into, the bowl game, and I think that's where the frustration is. Where my frustration is like, okay, we have a chance to go out and do this, and not only do you go out and lay an egg, but you lay an egg to the point where you're like, it looks like you don't even want to be there, and that's where I think people are so frustrated with James, is because it's like the team, it just felt like they didn't want to be there, and that really hurt. I mean, it hurts me, and I feel as if I have a pretty good feel for how the fans feel in that regard, and. I don't know the inside story of anything in this and that. I'm not in State College. I will probably try to ask around and try to figure out what's going on. When did they know guys weren't playing? Why did we keep on talking the game up and this and that? And it's just again, I think the easiest word to say is frustrated, right, Jeff? As a football fan, as a Penn State fan, it's just very frustrating. And you got to see where we come from that. I mean. I know how the old man would handle it. I mean, we start workouts really, really soon, really, really quick from, once the semester started, we would get that bad taste out of your mouth of that bowl game, recruiting's over. Are we still in the transfer portal? I don't know how that works when school starts. Is it closed? Everything's good to go. We got who we got. We're going to go with it. So there's a lot of questions. And then, going in and laying an egg in a bowl game brings those questions out. We're not talking about this if we won 38-20, 38-35. We're not talking about it. Yeah. We're talking about how, we're looking forward to next season, the new Big Ten. How can we do this? How can we win? Now we're just talking about, hey, how many can we win, not lose 4 games next year? That's the crazy conversation we're having. But that's the difference in, what Saturday was and what we're at right now.
Take a break here. We'll be back to talk some NFL and other Penn State sports as we wrap up our Tuesday edition of the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead.
Coast into fall with a new Kia from Lion Country Kia. Right now, get a 24 Kia Seltos for 5.25% APR for up to 48 months. A new Sportage plug-in hybrid at 0.9% APR. Check out our 23 Sorento hybrid for as low as 4.5% APR. And don't forget, all 2023 and 2024 Kias come with a 10-year, 100,000-mile limited warranty. Stop in and meet with one of our sales experts today and coast into fall at Lion Country Kia. We want to see you in a Kia.
Since retiring, I have spent my time searching the countryside for the hottest wings in America. I always seem to end up disappointed. You call these hot? Back off, Luigi.
Mamma mia.
Look, hands it, busboy. Your wings suck! I knew I should have stuck with Quaker Steaks Triple Atomic Wings. You think I'm tough enough?
The Center Hall Farm Store has been serving Center County and beyond for well over a half century. A small family business, the Center Hall Farm Store specializes in animal nutrition and manufactures its feed fresh using local ingredients. Get the best in horse, cow, pig, chicken, and bird feeds. If you're not already a customer, stop in and see why so many of your neighbors are. The Center Hall Farm Store at 110 West Allison Street in Center Hall, or call us at 814-364-1393.
Sioka Toyota of Williamsport invites you to stop in today or check us out online. We have the smart path to your next Toyota, like the all-new Crown, BZ4X, the all-new Grand Highlander, Corolla Cross Hybrids, Sequoias, and more. Over 100 new Toyotas here and on the way. Don't make a $1,000 mistake. Choose Sioka Toyota of Williamsport and see the Sioka dealership's difference. Buy or reserve yours today and see for yourself why Sioka Toyota is the only stop you need for your next new car. Sioka Toyota, it just feels right.
Ready to be part of something bigger? Come pave the road to success at Glen Baker and discover a career where your hard work and determination can build a bigger, better future. Our team believes we can build a stronger future together. Join us at Glen Baker, where we value teamwork on the field and on the job. Go to GOHcareers.com to apply. GOHcareers.com. And best of luck to all the Center County sports teams all season long from everyone at Glen Baker.
The Goon and Ironhead.
And we welcome you back here on this Tuesday afternoon, a final segment of the Goon and Ironhead show. Starting back up with the winter sports season here for Penn State. Goon Lady Lions will be in action tonight at the Jordan Center. And Nittany Lions, Goon, it does feel like they're figuring some things out. I am excited to see what they do here in the Big Ten. I think there's going to be some rough nights for this team, but I also think this is a team that is, again, the communication part of it, I think is big, and I think they are getting better at understanding what they need to do in order to compete against these Big Ten teams. Again, I think there's going to be some rough nights, especially on the road for this team. But I do think they have a chance here to be competitive in the Big Ten. I think they're getting a better understanding of what they need to do defensively, of what they need to do. Obviously, rebounding is going to be the focus here moving into January. But I get it was Ryder, but I did think you saw a lot of good things in that Ryder game. The first time I had a chance to see them in person, we went up to that game. I really did like not just that they won and won going away, but it was more the way they were playing and going about their business.
Rather aggressive with how they're playing too, going out there and taking what they wanted, pressing, hitting the shots, and then they are high energy, man. I mean the way I'm looking at it is you got Crispin's offense and Rhodes' defense out there.
Yeah,
I mean that's the hell of a thing right there. Where knowing Joe Crispin and how I know his mentality when it comes to offense, and that is get it up, shoot, put it up, put it up, put it up. So, and then Rhodes, I mean, I like how he's holding guys accountable too. He's benching guys and pulling guys out of the game if they're not hustling, not working. And I think that they're starting to get that. And yeah, it's not going to be an easy year by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't think Rhodes is thinking that. I think the coach Rhodes is out there saying, what we're going to do, what we're going to do. I don't care if we're playing Indiana, Kansas, UCLA, whoever. I don't care. We're going to go out there and play hard, play tough, and I think they're going to have like an upset or two. I think it'll be a learning process throughout the year, but I think people outside are looking at Coach Rhodes and saying this is going to be a nice place to go play sometime real soon.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Penn State hockey will be back in action against Army West Point on Saturday, and then kind of back into the full swing the following week. Penn State wrestling heads out to Corvallis on Thursday. They'll wrestle at Oregon State on Friday night and get back into the full swing of things there. Of course, the biggest questions right now for Penn State are how 125 and 149 ultimately shake out here for the Nittany Lions and who emerges as the starters heading into the postseason. We may get some idea of that anyway with Friday night's dual meet at Oregon State. But certainly Penn State feels like it's in a pretty good position heading into the final 9-week stretch here of the wrestling season.
I gotta ask you, Head.
Yep.
What in the hell was the Ferrari kid doing?
I don't. He has apologized.
I saw the apology, so I went back and looked at it, and I was like, "Whoa!"
Yeah, I don't know.
He's already. They already know he's a Wildcat, right? We know that, right?
Yeah.
So he is wrestling for who? Iowa.
Yeah.
But who was he wrestling? What was he wrestling? And why
he was wrestling unattached, but yeah.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, there are some ongoing issues there. And listen, there are a lot of things that happen in the heat of competition, and I don't want to get carried away, but when you have the reputation that he does, and people are watching and looking at you under a microscope, and you give them something that you can see from without while you're blinking repeatedly, like it's just a dumb thing to do. Now, do most college kids make some dumb decisions from time to time?
No.
Yes, but man, I don't know. I really do hope for his sake, because he is a terrific talent. I mean, he is an entertaining wrestler. Like his actual wrestling ability is really good and really fun. But he's got to get himself straightened out and in better order. Steelers, Goon, all of a sudden look like a legit playoff team. We'll see whether or not they become one this Sunday. Although I can never root for the Ravens, just like I couldn't really root for Michigan. I am glad, though, that Michigan won for the Big Ten's sake, and I do think it makes Penn State look better. By the way, Penn State opponents 5-2 in the bowl games, and the Big Ten 5-4 in bowl games this year. So, for whatever it's worth, not bad on either count.
Well, before Michigan, the 4 wins were Minnesota, Maryland, Rutgers, and Northwestern.
Northwestern beat Utah.
Before Michigan. So that was a much-needed win for the Big Ten last night, without question.
Yeah. Yep. 5-4 again for the conference, and 5-2 for Penn State opponents here from this season in the bowl games.
What was the most impressive, do you think?
Steelers, Michigan for sure.
Well, I mean, other than that, I think West Virginia was that was a great win for them.
Yeah, no, it was. This sets them up nicely for some expectation next year as well. Steelers go. My guess is they're going to just miss out again on the playoffs, and you're going to go back to that 3-week stretch where they lose the 2 home games to 2-10 teams, or 2-8, whatever they were at the time, 2-10, I think it was, and then the loss to the Colts. If they win one of those 3 games, and they beat the Ravens, who are expected to rest a good number of their players.
Ooh, that's my question.
I could not root for the Ravens, but I am glad now that they did win the game over the Dolphins that they did, because it does give the Steelers a better chance anyway to close out the season with a win. But I don't think they need – the easiest path is if the Bills lose, and I don't think the Bills are losing to the Dolphins the way those two teams are playing right now. That Dolphins defense is pretty decimated at the moment.
Yeah. My question is, do you think Baltimore rests as much as people are saying they're going to rest, because they're going to have a bye? If they rest, they're going to be a 3-week in between. I just feel as if they're going to play the first half full go. So
they might
they'll put 40 up on the Steelers quick in the first half, and then they'll rest all their starters.
They might go a quarter. I can't imagine they're going to play many of those starters beyond a quarter, if that. But you never know. We'll see how it plays out. But I can't imagine they're going to put guys that they need in the postseason out there and put them in harm's way for what is for them now a meaningless game. What is also interesting, as a side note for the Steelers, is if they win that game over the Ravens and do miss the playoffs, which I think is a likely scenario this weekend, they will go 5-1 in the AFC North, which is, certainly you can argue, but one of the toughest, I would argue the toughest division in the NFL this year. They go 5-1 in that division, and you don't make the playoffs because you couldn't take care of business in some other games that you needed to take care of business. But that is an oddity, Goon. When you're in a division that tough, to go 5-1 in the division and not make the playoffs is ridiculous. But it speaks to the kind of the up and down nature of the Steelers this season. Speaking of up and down nature, what are we thinking of your dear Eagles coming off with the loss to the Cardinals? By the way, the one difference for the Cardinals and the win over the Eagles versus the Steelers, Kyler Murray is a difference maker. Like, that dude is, man, when he is on, Goon, that is a special, special talent.
Yeah, they're I don't know if there's been many ups recently. My God, I mean, it's 4 in a row. 4 of the last 5 they've lost. It's just been insane how bad they're doing. They're in some stuff right now. They offensively and defensively, they're not doing much either way, making plays happen. And you can see the players' frustration, you see the coaches' frustration, and obviously the fans' frustration. I maybe that they're a veteran enough team, like we just got to get in and give us a shot and go from there. But losing to Arizona, taking away a home game for a playoff game, it's a bad thing. That's going to have ramifications going forward. I mean, going down on the on an away trip or an away game, that's not going to be fun, in a playoff game. So hopefully they get things happen and they get a home game out of it and go from there. But like I said, they're a veteran team, so maybe that they're holding off. When they get in, they can make a splash. But right now, they're doing nothing. They're just going through the motions, offensively, defensively, and especially coaching wise. Yeah,
it is going to be. It feels right now like the 49ers are the class of the NFC, that the Ravens are the class of the AFC. But there's enough dangerous potential matchups there. Like the Packers, I think, are just a really potentially dangerous team. Like Jordan Love has just come on here. The Buffalo Bills, obviously in the AFC, and listen, they might not even be in there. Like they still got to take care of business here against the Dolphins, and that's not a gimme. Although, again, with the Dolphins' injury issues and with the way they're playing on the defensive side of the ball right now, I just can't see Miami. I can see that being a high-scoring game. I just can't see Miami winning that one, even though
Bills are hot right now at the right time, man. The Bills are rolling into the playoffs hot, and it looks like they may have to play the Chiefs at the Chiefs in that first round. And I'd be afraid if I was the Chiefs.
Yeah, Chiefs are not the Chiefs that we've come to expect, which again doesn't mean they couldn't catch fire in the playoffs, but it feels right now anyway to me, Goon, that if they stay healthy, like the 49ers and Ravens, like I will be surprised if that is not our Super Bowl matchup. Injuries notwithstanding, and injuries obviously can change
Browns Eagles
everything quickly. Yeah, I don't see the Browns beating the Ravens. Not
Browns Eagles is the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I don't see that happen.
Yep.
But now a Steelers Packers Super Bowl, that I could see. That a Mason Rudolph led Steelers team against Jordan Love and the Packers. That'll be a fun.
I'm very disappointed, Jeff, in the Pittsburgh media. I didn't have one thing Rudolph Saves Christmas over 2 weeks ago. I didn't hear one time.
There was a good bit of that.
Okay, all right. I mean, I didn't hear it, so maybe I wasn't looking at the right places. But
yeah,
I thought that was funny. But good times, man. Good times.
Sorry about the technical difficulties.
You're traveling, right? You're not here Thursday, right?
Correct. I am out Thursday. Hopefully, the Deer Booches hopefully be back full go. We'll do what we can on Thursday is the way I'm going to leave it for today. I'll actually be in the air on my way out to Corvallis, so I will be of no help, which actually isn't much different than what today was.
That's all good, buddy. We'll
get it done. Folks, have a great rest of your day until Thursday. Be good and be safe. And yes, thank you for tuning in.
Coast into fall with a new Kia from Lion Country Kia. Right now, get a 24 Kia Seltos for 5.25% APR for up to 48 months. A new Sportage plug-in hybrid at 0.9% APR. Check out our 23 Sorrento hybrid for as low as 4.5% APR. And don't forget, all 2023 and 2024 Kias come with a 10-year, 100,000-mile limited warranty. Stop in and meet with one of our sales experts today and coast into fall at Lion Country Kia. We want to see you in a Kia.
Since retiring, I have spent my time searching the countryside for the hottest wings in America. I always seem to end up disappointed. You call these hot? Back off, Luigi.
Mamma mia.
You hands it, busboy. Your wings suck! I knew I should have stuck with Quaker Steaks Triple Atomic Wings. You think I'm tough enough?
The Center Hall Farm Store has been serving Center County and beyond for well over a half-century. A small family business, the Center Hall Farm Store specializes in animal nutrition and manufactures its feed fresh using local ingredients. Get the best in horse, cow, pig, chicken, and bird feeds. If you're not already a customer, stop in and see why so many of your neighbors are. The Center Hall Farm Store at 110 West Allison Street in Center Hall, or call us at 814-364-1393.
Sioka Toyota of Williamsport invites you to stop in today or check us out online. We have the smart path to your next Toyota, like the all-new Crown, BZ4X, the all-new Grand Highlander, Corolla Cross Hybrids, Sequoias, and more. Over 100 new Toyotas here and on the way. Don't make a $1,000 mistake. Choose Sioka Toyota of Williamsport and see the Sioka dealership's difference. Buy or reserve yours today and see for yourself why Sioka Toyota is the only stop you need for your next new car. Sioka Toyota, it just feels right.
Ready to be part of something bigger? Come pave the road to success at Glen O'Haw Baker and discover a career where your hard work and determination can build a bigger, better future. Our team believes we can build a stronger future together. Join us at Glen O. Hawbaker, where we value teamwork on the field and on the job. Go to GOHcareers.com to apply. GOHcareers.com. And best of luck to all the Center County sports teams all season long from everyone at Glen O. Hawbaker.
The Goon